Washington, where the White House is expected to announce new sanctions on Iran. The U.S. Treasury Secretary is vowing an economic D-Day is coming for Iran. In a Financial Times Sunday op-ed, Scott Bessent wrote, "The world should understand that our objective is to sever every economic lifeline that sustains the tyrannical regime until Tehran stands alone." He says Iran won't be the only target, but would impact anyone working with Iran.
If you insist on doing business with them, either transferring money, buying their oil, doing seaborne ship transfers, then the U.S. Treasury and the U.S. government, they will put its full might and force toward enforcing against you.
Meanwhile, Tehran's leadership appears to show growing differences over negotiations with Washington. Iran's president says the country, quote, cannot continue with war forever, but the foreign minister insists U.S. sanctions and pressure campaigns are nothing new for Iran.
This is a repetitive scenario, from the crippling sanctions imposed during the Obama administration to the maximum pressure campaign during Mr. Trump's first administration, and now to the latest sanctions. All of these measures have been introduced under different titles, but they represent the same kind of bullying that we have always seen in American policy. In other words, it's the same movie they keep playing over and over again. We know this movie, so we know how to confront and deal with it.
Iran is also warning that ships accused of violating its transit rules in the Strait of Hormuz could be penalized or even seized. Iran's already hard-hit economy is suffering from a new blow. Iranian media reports that the country's currency, the rial, sunk to a record low against the U.S. dollar. It's not just Tehran's economy that's hurting. American consumers have been paying more at the pump and just about everywhere else since the start of the war nearly 6 months ago. One Fed official says the longer the war goes on, the less confident he is that inflation will return to target.
For 5 years, we've been saying inflation is going to return to target in the next year or two. It just keeps getting pushed out. Eventually, we're going to have to do more. And I'm not sure if we're there yet. We need to see more data. But I don't want to prejudge the next meeting, but I'm not feeling confident right now that inflation is heading back down to target in a short period of time.
Meanwhile, crude oil prices dipped slightly on Sunday after Iran's top security chief threatened to halt all oil movement through the Strait of Hormuz. Recently released footage of Iran's supreme leader is prompting more questions about his condition and whereabouts. An Iranian news site posted a short clip of what's believed to be archive footage of Mojtaba Khamenei. He's not been seen in public since being appointed to the role following his father's death in the U.S.-Israeli attack that launched the war with Iran. Earlier this month, Iranian state media shared another undated video of Mojtaba, apparently taken before the war. Tehran insists security considerations are the primary reason for Mojtaba's absence in public. Joining me now to bring their insights and analysis are Miad Maleki, former senior official at the U.S. Treasury, and Trita Parsi, executive vice president at the Quincy Institute responsible for statecraft. So, Miad, I want to start with you and talk about sanctions because you helped design sanctions against Iran when you were at Treasury. What can Treasury actually do now that it hasn't done after years of sanctions besides go after China, Turkey, Iraq, other buyers of Iran's oil?
No, thanks for the great question, and thanks for having me, and also your guest, Trita. You're right. I mean, the gap isn't really the authorities that president has. Iran's economy has been subject to very comprehensive, I would say, the most comprehensive sanctions in the history of sanctions. So it's not the authorities that the Treasury Department is going to expand. It's really the enforcement. I would say we're at maximum designation capacity, but this is not maximum pressure. And I think what President Trump and Secretary Bessent are really focusing on right now is really focusing on the oil ecosystem. Remember, Iran already has, Iran managed to move a lot of oil out of the Strait of Hormuz before the blockade and when the blockade was put on pause. So that oil is available to buyers in China and elsewhere. So yes, there would be some probably pressure on small, medium-sized teapot refiners in China who are purchasing Iranian oil. That'll put more pressure on Iran's revenue generation, but also the banks and exchange houses that allowing Iranian regime to repatriate some of those revenue and get access to foreign currency. So there's an enforcement that we're going to see happening right now. There's specific authorities that Treasury Department has to put pressure on banks in UAE, in China, and elsewhere to really cut off the regime's access to also formal financial system indirectly that they have maintained through some of these exchange houses. So it's more of an enforcement posture, not really an expansion of existing authorities. And just very quickly, I think it's also the diplomatic pressure that I think we're seeing Secretary Bessent really putting on Iran through cases such as UAE cutting off ties with Iran economically. You probably are seeing some more information sharing that is happening between the Gulf nations and the US and elsewhere. But you also have UN and EU sanctions that are biting against Iran's economy right now.
Trita, do you think all this pressure, diplomatic, economic, do you think it's going to work? Just keep squeezing until Iran gives more?
Well, judging by the track record of the last 4 decades of more and more sanctions, there's really no reason to believe that this time around is going to be dramatically different from the previous times. All the previous times undoubtedly had put pressure on Iran. There's no doubt about that, and it has devastating impact on the Iranian economy. It has not, however, translated into the Iranians giving up, capitulating, or surrendering as Trump wants them to do right now, or even necessarily becoming more flexible in the negotiations. Oftentimes, what the Iranians have done when faced with this type of a pressure, particularly if it's stinging, is to counter-escalate. And that's the story we've seen for the last couple of years in particular. And the risk here is, of course, that if there isn't a diplomatic path combined with this, that the Iranians believe then their perception will be that the U.S. is doing this in order to force the surrender. And that's when they will lash out, as they have done in the last couple of months. And their targets will be countries in the region or other slightly outside of the region. So I think this is a very dangerous gamble. I can understand the frustration of the administration in terms of some of the challenges in the negotiations, but putting all of their eggs in this basket is the same thing that was done 4 months ago when the blockade of the blockade was put in place. And then the administration was promised that the Iranian economy would collapse within 13 days. And here we are 4 or 5 months later, and it still hasn't happened.
大家好，我是主播林家远。生活压力大，失眠、浅眠是现代人常见的烦恼。太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌现在进一步推出晚安加强版，添加天然 GABA、色氨酸、茶氨酸、香蜂草4大天然草本，选择太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌，做好日常保养，身体轻松无负担。每日克菲尔时刻美好 ，Good Feel Good， 请上快点购为健康下单，输入推荐码有额外折扣。太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌基础版、晚安加强版，新包装改版，内容不变，抽取更方便，要吃就吃最好的。